Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. Today is Tuesday. So, we're going to be working on step 2 of the Snowflake Method. I hope y'all had a great day yesterday. I had a busy day, but I enjoyed our first session yesterday with step 1. I really did. It took me back to my story. And I was able to see more things about my story than I originally saw. So, hey, that's good. And that's something you're going to find when you're writing. You take some time away from your story and then you go back, you have a fresh set of eyes to see some plot holes, to see some things about your characters that you didn't see, to add new things to your story to make it even stronger. And that's good. And sometimes you may have to revisit, I realize, the snowflake method in order to add these things to your story. So this will be my second go round with the snowflake method. And I am loving this. I am. I am. So today we're going to focus on step 2. Now I got my book and I have a bunch of notes and we're going to go at it. So we did yesterday, which was write your first one sentence summary using 25 words or less. And you may feel like, is that all? It's got to be more to this. Yeah, that's it for step 1. We got 9 more steps to go, and you're going to be amazed at how everything will come together in the end. Guarantee. Like I say, you will have enough material to consider yourself an author, a writer. You will have a full blown novel because I did. And that was with my second draft. Had I applied this for the first draft, oh my gosh, it would have been so much easier the second time around. But to be honest with you, I enjoyed the second time around. And I didn't want to accept the first draft where I wrote by the seat of my pants, where everything was all over the place. But it did introduce me to some of my characters, not all, because I had a whole lot of characters in that first draft. And it gave me, well, I already knew the premise, but it made my second draft much more good to work with. I keep thinking about, as a kid, you have a ball of clay and it's just nothing until you slowly start forming something. And that's what a book, you have this idea, just this big ball of ideas, cluster of balls of ideas. And slowly but surely you start chipping away, molding and shaping, and it becomes a masterpiece because your baby is a masterpiece. It's one of a kind. So anyway, we're gonna focus on step 2. I need a sip of coffee. I am having that moment. I can't even talk. Having that morning where I just need some caffeine. I got plenty of rest. It's raining. I just hope it don't flood where I'm at. I'm not really feeling any anxiety. So I keep thinking about yesterday. I need to let yesterday go. Yesterday was exhausting because I have kids. I love my kids, but one of them is in the 9th grade and we're doing that virtual learning. And I saw my mama in me. And I was like, oh no, no, I don't want to go down that route. So, yeah, I had to remove my mom from me and just be me and let my daughter do her thing because she knew a little bit more than I did on the schedule and the routine of her virtual online schooling. So, anyway, let's focus on step 2. So, you have your first sentence. You should be proud of it, embrace it. Now we're going to look at that first sentence and move into step 2 because we're going to build up on that sentence. And that's what the snowflake method is. Can you imagine a snowflake? Now, in the book, he drew a picture of a triangle. And he took an eraser and he erased part of the triangle. I don't know if you could be able to see this or not, but I tried to do it. And each point is an idea, is how I looked at it. And you build and you continue to build and you continue to build and you continue to build. I'm not sure if you can see that triangle he did. And slowly the triangles begin to multiply. That is like your story ideas, your ideas for your story, the plot, the characters, the settings. It will continue to build upon each other. And that's where we at. So today, the most important part about what you wrote yesterday, we're going to develop it into a paragraph. And these are some things I want you to think about when you're working on that. What drives a book? What drives it? What drives your story? Number one, people look for excitement. And to elicit excitement, you got to have something that is, well, I guess dangerous. And he talks about this in the Snowflake Method because, well, Goldilocks in this chapter, she can't understand how one sentence can lead into a novel. She having issues with that one sentence. She feel like she wasted this time just for one sentence. And he tried to explain to her, you know, you tried other methods that didn't work. She having problems with the snowflake method as well because she can't understand. You got this triangle, you building up on triangles. So he did. Baby Bear and the Big Bad Wolf decided to get together, and they was going to make Goldilocks make a choice. You have to make a decision whether you want to do the snowflake or not. Now the point is you're going to get a lot of advice from a lot of authors, writers, people all around you going to tell you how you should write your novel, what you should do, and all this other good stuff. If it works for you, hold on to it. If you find that it doesn't work for you or it don't sound right to you, let it go. You know, you're going to have to learn how to decipher between the good and the bad advice. And I'm here to tell you, not everything works for you. There's one thing that makes work for you. The snowflake method may not work for you, but I do guarantee there are some things in the snowflake method that you can apply to your story or to the process itself. So anyway, they put on this little stunt. Big Bad Wolf came into the room and told Little Bear that you can't use the snowflake method. You know, and Goldilocks sitting in the front already questioning about the snowflake method. So Big Bad Wolf, he pulls a gun out and he shoots Baby Bear right in the heart. And all of a sudden, all his blood come out. And Goldilocks immediately, she went into defensive mode. She liked Baby Bear. She got up, ran, and she attacked the Big Bad Wolf. Next thing you know, she's sitting on top of him. And then she felt a tap on her shoulders. And it was Baby Bear. He had fake blood. And she was upset. But in that moment, she realized she was in a dangerous situation. And she had to do something. She made a decision. And her decision was she was going to go and attack the Big Bad Wolf in defense of Baby Bear because she feared for her life as well. And the deal is, Baby Bear wanted her to realize you made a choice. You had already made a choice that you want to do the snowflake method because you react. And that's how your story is. It is built on dangerous situation. You know, I'm sorry, not dangerous, disastrous. So his point was that your story need a disaster. And why you need a disaster? Because it elicits excitement, you know? And from excitement, and because of that dangerous situation, you have to make a choice. So your character makes a choice based on a dangerous situation they was placed in. And from that choice, then they take your story into a whole new direction. So that's what we're going to focus on. Disaster, excitement, and a decision. Because those are the things that a reader looks for. And they always say the first, 5 lines should grab your reader, should excite them to want to continue to turn the page. So And they use an example in here about the Star Wars situation. So what I'm saying is that when we work on, we're going to write a 1 paragraph summary based on that one sentence we wrote. So that's going to take your story a little deeper. And they use Star Wars in here, but I like the analogy of a football game. I don't know if everybody out there like football. I do sometimes. Good morning. Good morning. I'm so glad to have you here this morning. So, so if you think of a football game, like they said, the first quarter, when you enter the game, there's gonna be a disaster, and then by the second quarter, by halftime, there's another disaster. And then at the end, there's another disaster. So that may be a bad analogy. But the main point is that this is a story structure that you're building up on. And I like the football, the 3 act, it's called a 3 act structure. And I sort of like thinking of it in the football because I know in the first quarter there's a disaster. Maybe a football player got his leg broken. By halftime, there's another disaster. The quarterback, oh, he's out of the game. And then by the third quarter, he missed a field goal. And that third disaster leads to the final conflict of your story where they lost the game. So they use an example of Star Wars, and it took me 20 years to watch the first Star Wars, and I liked it. I was shocked. I didn't want to look at it, but the big bad wolf, he wanted people to see how the disaster works in each quarter, like Star Wars. He said, at the end of the first quarter, okay, Luke's aunt and uncle get killed by the stormtrooper, and he decided to join, what is it, Obi-Wan Kenobi in the rebellions. Right. And Baby Bell said, then at halftime, Obi-Wan Kenobi duels with Darth Vader using a lightsaber, and Vader kills him. Now that's another disaster. And it forces Luke to become his own man, to quit, depending on his mentor. That's a disaster. So Goldilocks was starting to see how everything worked. And then when they get to the rebel planet, they learn that the Death Stars, has been tracking them and is coming to destroy the rebel planet. So now they have to decide, will they run and hide or will they stand and fight? So that's how your story should be written. You want this excitement, which is a dangerous situation, and that excitement leads to decisions that your main character have to make. And those decisions will lead your character, will change the story, will change the direction of your story. But the deal is, everything has to pace itself. Everything has to be done on a schedule. I am hot and my hormones are acting up. So that's what we're going to focus on today, is creating our disasters with our story. There was some more things I want to talk about. Oh, and I use this with my story, and I'm gonna rewrite it a little bit. Like I wrote some extra notes. Oh, another thing, when you're writing this here second step, you don't want your story to be boring. And I realized, okay, and Ari was a little bit boring. There were some good things about her, but when I was thinking over step 2 again in my mind, you don't want to play safe with any of your characters. And I think Bay was a little bit safe. I think Bay, which is my main character, she was sort of laid back. She took things as it went, but she put herself in some dangerous situations. So that was good. But Aunt Ivy, when I was thinking about my story again with new eyes, she's this Christian woman. She's an elderly, and she has something to say to everybody about how to live their life. And a lot of people respect her. And I was like, okay, she's playing it too safe. So I decided yesterday, she got to step outside of her comfort zone and do some stuff that people couldn't even imagine Aunt Ivy would do. So you got to make sure that you don't let your characters play it safe. So what I'm gonna do now is we're gonna do, I guess, maybe 30 minutes or so. We're gonna focus on step 2 of the Snowflake Method, and that is to write a 1 paragraph summary based on your 1 sentence that you wrote yesterday. And how you're gonna do that is you're gonna really focus on these things when you write your 1 paragraph. Now, paragraph is usually 4 to 5 sentences, but you can take it beyond that, and then we can go and narrow it down. So for your 1 sentence summary, you want to include the setting, which is the backdrop, and introduce your main character. You can have 1 or 2 main characters. You still don't have to mention their names if you want to, but you can, so we know who we're talking about. And you're going to summarize Act 1. And Act 1 has to end with a disaster. Remember, a disaster brings on excitement about your story. And from that point, and I'm going to put this in the notes, and also I'm including a blog notes, so you can click on the link later on today in the description. It will take you to everything we talked about written and organized on my blog. So you're going to summarize Act 1, ending with your first disaster. Then you're going to summarize the first half of Act 2, ending with your second disaster. Now, the reason why you're going to do the first half, because this is going to cause your MC, your main character, to commit to the story. And I guess I can use this example. So, Bay, my main character, she got her DNA results back from, she got her DNA results back, and she's upset because she realized she, not who she thought she was. So that was her first disaster. And summarizing the second part, the first half of the second part, she returns home, and that's when she discovered the psychic, the town psychic, is murder. That's another disaster. Okay, in the end of that part of the first half of the disaster, the end of the first act, she discovers that her best friend, which is her estranged best friend, it was her best friend from high school, murdered her mom. So she wants to see Bay. So Bay go and see her estranged best friend in jail. And she shares some information with Bay that only Bay and her mama knew. And Bay realized, wow, this is a possibility that this girl did not kill her mom. So that disaster made Bay realize, okay, the truth, the moral truth. So they changed the way they thinking, which changed the course of the story. And then you want to include, you want to sum up the next disaster going into Act 3. Well, we're going to take this step by step because it does sound confusing. So first, I want you to think about your settings. The backdrop. It can just say so-and-so was here talking to so-and-so. Then you're going to summarize Act 1 with your first disaster. We're going to have Act 1 with your first disaster, which make your MC commit to the story. Then we're going into the beginning of Act 2. Act 2 will end with your second disaster. Remember, disaster drives your story. So the second disaster happens at the beginning of Act 2, which your character is committed. And then at the end of Act 2, you're going to have another disaster. That's where your main character realize what they initially thought isn't necessarily the truth. So they changed their way of thinking. And this changed the course of your story, the direction of your story. Then you're going to go into summarization of Act 3. And this is your 1, 2, 3. This may be the 4th disaster, but usually summarizing in Act 3 is the final showdown. This, if you're writing a mystery, or this is where your main character is confronted with the murder victim. And this is what I used when I wrote my cozy mystery. So you can apply it to however you're using it in your story. So it's the final showdown. It's a life and death situation. Either my main character is gonna survive this, or they gonna lose and die. So you remember from yesterday, I told you that when you write your first summary, your first sentence, you include 1 or 2 characters, their goal, and a resolution. What they're gonna do, how much will they lose, and what will they lose. So anyway, we're going to work on that, and I'm just going to make it short again. Write a 1-paragraph summary. Include at least 3 disasters. First act, 1 disaster. Second act, the next disaster. The third act, the final disaster leading up to the showdown. Either they're going to win or succeed. Or they're going to succeed or they're going to lose. So do that. And we're going to spend at least 30 minutes writing on that. And remember, if it sounds a little bit confusing, I will have it all written out on my blog, which I will link in the description below. So let's do some writing. And if you're not doing step 2, I want you to work on whatever you want to work on. And we're going to play a little music. And I probably just have a 20-minute timer set, and then we'll go on from there. If you have any questions, just drop it in the comments and we'll take it from there. Okay, so I think we did a little bit more than 20 minutes. I did a 20-minute and a 15-minute and then the 10-minute wrap up. So, this is what I wrote. And while I was writing this part again, my story changed, and it changed for the best because now Aunt Ivy has more of a not so safe comfort role. So, in the chat, I wrote down the steps and I'm going to share mine so it may help you write yours since I don't think I explained it as well as I could have. So we was to write a 1 paragraph summary. And in the notes over here, I wrote, in your 1 paragraph summary, include the backstory and introduce one or two lead characters. So, mine's I wrote, Bay Vance returns to her small Texas town after she discovers her DNA doesn't match anyone in her family. She seeks answers from Getty, the town psychic, who is murdered upon her arrival. So that's my first disaster. And if you notice, there's my little backdrop, which is a small Texas town. And it's still broad, but as we go on with these steps, it will be more specific. So that's my first step. My main character is Bay. She's committed to the story because her estranged best friend mother is murdered. So there's a little history there. Then part of this step, summarize Act 1, ending with your first disaster. We did that because your MC is not committed to the story. Okay, we did that. Now you're going to summarize the first half of Act 2, ending with your second disaster. This will result in your MC to commit to a new way of thinking. So here's mine. Getty's daughter is arrested for murder of her mom, and she asks Babe to help prove her innocent. So this is the second disaster. Her estranged best friend is arrested. Babe changed her initial thoughts about her friend because she hadn't seen her friend in over 10 years, and she'd think, well, anything is possible. People change. So with this new information that her estranged best friend shared with her while she was in jail, Babe realized that that was enough proof to believe that her estranged best friend could be innocent. So that was my second disaster. And then I have now summarize the second half ending of Act 2, ending with your third disaster. This is where your MC and villain to commit to the ending of the story. And this is huge text. So anyway, after questioning the townspeople motive for murder of Getty, they suspect her own family had enough murder. She suspects her own family had enough motive to murder Getty. And Aunt Ivy, her dear heart, sweet Christian auntie, is her main suspect after finding out about a fight between the two women. Now, this is something new I added that wasn't in my first or second draft because I wanted to get Aunt Ivy out of that comfort zone, that safe zone. I didn't want her to be safe anymore, regardless of her spiritual background and her belief. So the two got into an argument or fight the day before Getty's body was discovered. So this is my third disaster. Bay is more committed to the story. Not only does she wants to prove that her estranged best friend is innocent, and she really believes she is, she needs to prove that Aunt Ivy didn't kill Getty. And she began to question, is she really capable of murder? That's a possibility. So that was that. Yeah. And then I go to this part. Finally, summarize Act 3. The final showdown where your MC will succeed or fail. You then resolve the story with a happy ending or a bittersweet ending. And this is what I wrote. Bay uses her tarot cards to help narrow down the suspect with the help of her sidekick. So in Cozy Mysteries, your sleuth has a sidekick, and her sidekick is her cat, Mr. Bud the Wiser. He who confronts the murderer. She confronts the murderer who is a part of another crime. Because I want it to be exciting. I want to have a lot of interesting leaps. Who confronts the murderer who was a part of another crime being committed under the nose of the sheriff, which is Bay's dad. Now, the deal about Bay's dad, I already know. He is the sheriff, and he is just recently diagnosed with Alzheimer's. So, Bay endangers her life by taking matters in her own hands. Wounded, but she gets a confession from the murderer. So, this is the final showdown. I'm battling between a bittersweet ending or a happy ending. And in my second draft, that was a happy ending. Everything was resolved. So I could have moved on to the second book. But this series is dealing with Bay Bonds. And I just thought about maybe it should be a bittersweet ending. You'll still get that happiness, but Bay never gets the answers about her paternity because the secret is buried with Getty, which is the town psychic who was murdered, and is lost in the fading memory of her dad who is diagnosed with Alzheimer's. So there you go. I'm going back and forth. So that's an example of how you should write step 2 with your 3 disasters and then the final showdown using the 3-act structure for your story. So I hope this helps somewhat. Ain't Ari done did it? Oh, I like the way you think, because you can think that. So anyway, I'm excited about that. So I changed it around some, but I'm not going to tell who did it. I already know who really did it because I wrote it in my second draft, but I needed to do some twists and some turns and get my characters out of that comfort zone and make them do things they wouldn't ordinarily do. So I'm not going to give that story away. So anyway, I hope this helped. And for those that was working on your other project, I hope this time helped you push words forward, to continue what you was doing. Tomorrow, I should be a little bit more prepared. I think what it was, I knew the steps. I caught myself writing down extra notes, and that was just confusing to me. I should have left that alone and just spoke from my head or whatever. So tomorrow we're going into step 3. We will be here the same time. We will probably spend maybe 40 minutes or so or less. It depends on writing and doing step 3. So be sure to check the notes under the description later on today. I will link it up to a blog post where it breaks everything down and the purpose of step 2 for you. Until then, I will see you tomorrow. Be safe and happy writing. Thanks for joining me.